السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي خلق السماوات والأرض وجعل الظلمات والنور. ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم. First, let me begin this brief presentation with a confession. And the confession is that this topic was, as Alice was mentioning, that this topic was chosen before the election. Before the results of the election were announced, and it's a I don't know if it's a happy coincidence, but it's an interesting coincidence nonetheless that we end up talking about this particular topic tonight. And the title of tonight's topic is Charting Our Religious History, a Roadmap to the Future. And to go directly into it, we have to begin with the Quran. The Quran gives us the beginning of man's existence in this world, and it highlights particular accounts in order to derive certain lessons. So, when someone asks, well, where did Islam come from? Who is the founder of Islam? It's wrong of us to say that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it's wrong of us to say that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the founder of Islam. Because Islam, or this idea of submission to God, has always been here. Abraham preached it, upon whom be peace. Jesus preached it. Moses preached it. All of the great teachers and prophets that we know about, they all preach this idea that we today summarize or call by the title of Islam. And as we know, or we should know, Islam is an Arabic word which means surrender or submission to God. And so in a sense, these were all these teachers that we read about, or that we know about. All these teachers are putting ingredients into the same product, and the final touch was put in there by Muhammad, the final prophet, upon whom be peace and blessings. And this is sort of also an answer to a question. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he lived over 14 centuries ago. He was born in the year 570 and died in the year 632. And Prophet Muhammad was born in an age that is known as the age of ignorance, Asabiyyah. He was born in an age or a period of time that's known as the time or the period of ignorance. And that's something that we're going to look at a little bit today. And when we say the period of ignorance, that doesn't mean that everything is, completely and totally bad or completely and totally evil. Because like every society, Arabia, before the coming of Islam, Arabia had its virtues. It had its unique characters, or unique characteristics, or unique qualities. However, the bad qualities or the bad characters or bad characteristics were undeniable. And one of those bad characteristics is what in today's language we call tribalism. Tribalism is something which is petty, it is provincial, and if you excuse my language, it's actually a stupid way of thinking. And they call this in Arabic Asabiyyah. This is a word we talk about a lot tonight, Asabiyyah. And the translation of Asabiyyah as tribalism doesn't do justice to the term Asabiyyah. Asabiyyah has the sense of being bound, of tied up in something, of being stuck. So one's heart one's mind captured in something which is terrible, captured in something which is actually destructive. So Prophet Muhammad comes. Prophet Muhammad comes as a messenger of God, and his message doesn't start with in a church somewhere or in a monastery somewhere. His mission starts with the people who are caught up in this mentality, or who have this mentality in their thinking, in their ethos. In addition to Asabiyyah, they had their other problems too. And most of the time you read the Muslim writers, they emphasize the religious stuff. They emphasize that the pre-Islamic Arabs used to worship idols. This is what they used to emphasize. That they used to worship idols. That they worshipped idols of wood and stone, and even worshipping the dates. The dates that you eat in Ramadan. That the literature often emphasizes that they used to even worship these items. And they had undisciplined attitudes when it came to a lot of things in life. And decades of conflict and hatred and tension, emphasize these things. Decades of conflict, hatred, and tension would occur due to the smallest offense. A camel would stray into somebody else's land, into another group's land, and this would cause a conflict, a war that will last, for years. And so, in the midst of this environment, of that type of environment, in the midst of that environment, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was born. And before I should even continue talking about him, because the question may emerge, like, why talk about Muhammad? Why not talk about Jesus? Why not talk about Moses? Why not talk about Buddha? Why Muhammad? Why spend all this time talking about Muhammad? There are a lot of reasons, but the best reason is the most practical reason. In that, about Muhammad, he is the most verifiable prophet that has existed in human history. So you can find out where Muhammad lived. You can find out where Muhammad died. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He is the most verifiable prophet in history. And so let's go back to Prophet Muhammad alaihi wasallam. Let's go back to him and go back to what he said about this idea of Asabiyyah. I should have wrote it on the board. Let's go back to what he says about Asabiyyah. There is one hadith, it says, the Prophet was asked, what is Asabiyyah? It's a logical question. What is Asabiyyah? And the Prophet's response is, Asabiyyah is assisting your people in committing oppression. And tu'inu qawmaka 'ala al-dhulm. That's the statement of the Prophet. That Asabiyyah is assisting your people when they're doing wrong, when they're doing oppression. And he also is reported to have said, the one who calls others to Asabiyyah, he is not of us. Laysa minna. He's not of us. He says, the one who battles for the cause of Asabiyyah, he is not of us. The one who dies upon that thinking, he is not of us. وَلَيْسَ مِنَّ مَنْ مَاتَ عَلَى عَصَبِيَّةٍ. The one who dies upon Asabiyyah, he is not of us. That is a statement of the Prophet.
What does that mean?
And so we have many other hadiths that have the same sort of meaning, as well as other hadiths in which the Prophet ﷺ emphasized that humanity is one, that we all come from the same source. Now, why have we emphasized Prophet Muhammad's treatment of this particular subject of Asabiyyah, of tribalism, or of racism, or of excessive love for your nation or your people? Why have we emphasized that? And how does looking at those types of the statements of the Prophet, how do these statements help us in our overall attempt to understand Islam and to understand where we are going in the future? How does these hadiths help us? Well, the simple answer to that is that our Asabiyyah has returned.
Has what?
Has returned. Has come back. The Asabiyyah has returned. Has come back. And now I have to go into the politics a little bit, because what we have witnessed in this election cycle is an openly divisive figure who has become the president. He's emerged as the president. And to be honest with you, that's not even the worst of it. The emergence of the more bold behavior of the racist, of the vengeful, of the hateful, that's more dangerous than a controversial president. And all of us who have social media, particularly those who have social media, have seen these reports about junior high school students, sometimes even the teachers, being harassed if they're Muslim. I think all of us have seen those kinds of reports. And where not just harassment, but even Muslim people facing violence. People, children, chanting, "Build that wall." So we see the emergence of Asabiyyah again. But Prophet Muhammad, may Allah's peace and blessings be upon him, Prophet Muhammad, he overcame it. And if Prophet Muhammad can overcome it, why the hell can't we overcome it? Can we overcome it? If Prophet Muhammad did it, can we do the same? So, if we are charting our religious history, creating a map for our future, if we're doing that, then we have to look at Prophet Muhammad. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. We have to look at Prophet Muhammad. And what did Prophet Muhammad do? It was hard to summarize all these things on a small whiteboard, but nonetheless, I hope we can get something from it. So, what did Prophet Muhammad do? Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Look at his life. For the first 13 years of his mission, since he was given prophethood by God, the first 13 years of his mission, he's in Mecca. He spent most of his time in Mecca, which is not only where the disbelievers live, but Mecca, you can consider Mecca to have been at that time to have been the enemy capital. You can consider Mecca to have been the enemy capital. And all of us are familiar, or should be familiar, with the accounts of the things that Prophet Muhammad faced, and the things that his followers faced within Mecca. And in the midst of persecution, in the midst of opposition, he was very patient and he was very diligent. And most importantly, and I'm emphasizing this part because this is things that I think that you and I need to think about and to learn about. Most importantly, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he did not limit himself to talking to elites. He didn't limit himself to talking to big shots. he had interactions with normal people, with common people. But it's even said in the literature that if a slave were to offer the Prophet for dinner invitation, the Prophet would go for that. But most of us are afraid to go to certain neighborhoods. So, going back to this. So Prophet Muhammad was not looking for photo ops. Prophet Muhammad was not like that. A fellow looking for photo ops. You ever see politicians on Thanksgiving or on Christmas or even in other countries during other holidays that you see them. There's always a camera there. When it's Eid time in some countries in the Islamic world, the president is always there. The camera is there to capture him when he's saying his prayer, to capture him when he's making dua. And similarly, in our country here, we have it like that. Sometimes you have the politicians at Christmas time or Thanksgiving serving food, and there's a camera there waiting for it. Prophet Muhammad was not like that. He was not like that. And in both Mecca and Medina, Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was involved in various actions designed to lessen the plight of the underprivileged. In today's language, we would say that the Prophet was involved in social justice, in the cause of social justice. And really all the prophets are like that. No doubt, all the prophets are like that. It's not limited to Prophet Muhammad. But I admit I'm emphasizing Prophet Muhammad. More evidence for this is given even within the third pillar of our religion. What's the third pillar of our religion? It is the zakat. And indeed, most of the time in the Quran, when you read about prayer, you read about zakat alongside prayer. Aqimu salata wa atu zakat. You see it again and again and again and again and again. They're almost always connected. More examples. There are certain things that a Muslim does that, let's say that they are religiously a mistake. And if you ask, maybe later we can give a physical example, a real example. But there are certain mistakes that a Muslim makes. And they will be corrected, Islamically speaking, by feeding poor people. This is how they be corrected, by feeding poor people, a certain number of poor people. Or it be corrected by freeing slaves. In today's particular environment, Muslims should be more deeply involved in things like soup kitchens. Without the press. Soup kitchens. Reading labs. Helping people to learn how to read. Free health clinics. Scholarships. Muslims should be more involved in those things. And again, it's not something that always has to be put in the media. Meaning it has to be sincerity involved behind it, and not just a photo op. So we've only gone to number 1 so far. Number 2 is creating lasting relationships. And these relationships should not be seen as political relationships. And I admit that it's true that any figure may have some political maneuvering in his mind. I mean, I can't deny that. But the lasting relationships are the most authentic relationships. The relationships that are real, that are based on something other than political gain or on financial gain. And again, we look to Muhammad for that. Sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Look at him for that. Look at the relationship to himself and Abu Bakr. Look at the relationship to himself and Sayyidina Umar. Or even look at the marriages that Prophet Muhammad went into. I'm kind of skipping ahead. Look at the marriages that Prophet Muhammad went into. These are things that are building relationships between peoples. Continuing on this subject, even before the prophethood, Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, was involved in something which is called Hilf al-Fudul. And this was the title given with regards to, basically it's an association of people that used to look out for the oppressed and the hungry and such. That's what Muslims should be. This is what Muslims are to be about. Join those people. They don't even have to be Muslims. Join those people. Get involved with those people who share the same interests. In the worthwhile projects that involve feeding and clothing and giving shelter to those who don't have it. Be with them. And I'll take it a step further. This is going to be a surprising statement. Even have interracial marriages or intercultural marriages. And for Muslims, Muslims should do this. I'm not saying Muslims should do this with non-believers, but Muslims should do this with each other. Why can't Arab and Pakistanis marry sometimes? Why not? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with that?
But this is
interracial marriage, intercultural marriage. I'm advocating this as something, as a solution, or as something that we learn from Prophet Muhammad. And going into Prophet Muhammad's marriages. Again, Prophet Muhammad's marriages, these were marriages that strengthened, these are marriages that solidified alliances, that created bonds with peoples. And from the logical point of view, if you're going to go to war, you're not going to go to war with somebody in your family most of the time, unless they're absolutely crazy. Then it's a different story. The third thing here, strategies of the Prophet, is to have long-term interests. Look towards long-term interests. And I mentioned this on Friday a little bit, but I'll go into more detail now. So, the Prophet Muhammad, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Muslims, they wanted to make pilgrimage to Mecca. They lived in Medina, and they wanted to make pilgrimage to Mecca. In fact, according to the Quran, the Prophet had a vision. Ru'ya is mentioned in Surah Al-Fath. The Prophet had a vision that says, we are going to make the pilgrimage to Mecca. And Mecca was under enemy control. Not only was it under enemy control, you consider Mecca to have been the capital, the enemy capital. And it's a long story, and I'm going to try to, I'm going to make this story short, make the long story short. So the long story short is that the Muslims got stopped when they were trying to make their pilgrimage. They got stopped at a place called Hudaybiyah. They were unable to make the pilgrimage because the Meccans, they stopped them from doing that. And the Prophet, they made a treaty. The Muslims because they had been in a state of war. It wasn't Cold War, it was actual war. It wasn't Cold War, it was hot war. And the Prophet ﷺ and the enemy, they made a treaty. It's called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. This is what it's called. And there were a number of conditions. And if you want, after this is over, you can go through the questions and I'll tell you the reasons. There were a number of conditions that were very unfavorable and unjust for the Muslim side. Yet the Prophet signed the documents. He agreed to that agreement. Why did he do?
Was he signed the treaty? Signed the treaty. Alhamdulillah.
Why did he do that? Because it guaranteed at least 10 years of peace. Now, it's true that the kuffar had broke the treaty later on, but that's irrelevant to our point. Our point was that the Prophet ﷺ was willing to compromise. He was even to potentially lose face. We talked about this in a little more detail on Friday. Even the chance of losing face, the Prophet was willing to take that in order to make a long-term goal become a reality. And so this is not defeat. This is not the Prophet's actions were not a defeatist thinking, a defeatist mentality. He wasn't surrendering. Rather, this is wisdom. He's acting in a wise way. The qualities of wisdom and patience are needed in order to have success in these trying times, just as these were needed in the time of the Prophet. And what happened? Just going back to the Hudaybiyah, what eventually happened? What eventually happened, again the details are irrelevant for the moment, but what eventually happened is that the kuffar, that they broke the treaty, they attacked people who were allied with the Muslims, and the Muslims had to respond. But when the Muslims were able to, they were now in a powerful position to respond. So, as the account goes, they enter into Makkah at the head of a 10,000 army. And you know what happened then? You know, when the Americans invaded Iraq in 2003, I believe it was 2003, 2004, they had these remember the playing cards? You know, Saddam Hussein was on there, Chemical Ali was on there, Tariq Aziz was on there. They had these playing cards. And a lot of these characters you had to capture dead or alive. Prophet Muhammad didn't do that when he entered into Makkah. In fact, what Prophet Muhammad did is that he guaranteed, first of all, he entered into Makkah bloodlessly. And second of all, he even issued directly orders of amnesty and orders of security. So the people in such and such house were deemed safe. The people who are taking refuge by the Kaaba were deemed safe. Everybody was deemed safe. There was no taking of revenge. You know, people talk about how Islam is not a forgiving religion, and they talk about how their thinking is love and forgiveness and all that. But whereas they preached it, Prophet Muhammad actually did it. They preach it, and they preach it better than us. But Prophet Muhammad actually did it. You want to know about the Prophet Muhammad? Prophet Muhammad actually did it. He wasn't talk, he was action. The fourth item, looking at Prophet Muhammad, looking at his history, is being focused upon Allah. See, Prophet Muhammad was someone who was not just business or just politics or just this or just that. Prophet Muhammad was focused upon Allah. He was connected with Allah. You know, he prayed more than the 5 daily prayers. He prayed a lot more than that. Perhaps half the night, the Quran mentions that half of the night or a third of the night that he spends in worship of God. And not only that, you know, we have all these books of hadith everywhere. And you know what a great number of these sources contain are litanies of praises that he would recite before dinner, before eating, after eating, throughout the day, reciting words of praise of Allah Azza wa Jalla. And Allah says, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ يَجْعَل لَّهُ مَخْرَجًا وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. Allah says that those who have taqwa of Him, who have regards and respect for Him, that He creates for them a way out of any bad situation, circumstance. And He provides for that person, or those people, from sources that that person can never imagine. وَيَرْزُقْهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا يَحْتَسِبُ. So again, to emphasize,